Let's continue our conversation with a pair of attorneys from Louisville, Kentucky. Adam Thompson joins us via Skype, and from Newsmax New York, it's Bruce Reinhart. Adam, you were making a point before the break. We want you to finish that, and perhaps you have a reaction to the widow of Eric Garner and her comments.
Yeah, sure. Just the two problems that I started to allude to was you have the first is you have no control how the prosecution is going to present the case. They can give as little or as much evidence as they want, and they could examine the evidence as detailed as they want. For example, they could either cross-examine or not cross-examine the defendants if they choose to testify. And in this case, the police officer did testify. It's my understanding he wasn't cross-examined, which is very unusual. They always cross-examine the defendant if they testify. The second problem that you have in these cases is that well, I'm losing my.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, let me. Well, on that point, Adam.
Racism out of the jury. You never know how a jury's going to react.
Right.
If it's predominantly white or black, it could sway one way or the other.
But and also the role of a grand jury obviously differs from a petit jury, and that's why we want to bring in Bruce Reinhart again. Bruce, you're a former federal prosecutor. Your approach when working with a grand jury at the federal level?
It's the same approach that they would have taken in this case. You're trying to just find out what happened. The grand jury is an investigative body, and in this case they heard from dozens of witnesses, they reviewed all the evidence, and as Mr. Tompkins points out, the officer actually testified. So the grand jurors had a chance to listen to him, to observe his credibility, and to hear what he had to say and decide whether he was telling the truth or not. In a case like this, as the prosecutor and the grand jury, there's only one question. You know what happened. The question is, why did it happen, and did the officer do it on purpose? And more importantly, can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a regular jury that the officer did it on purpose? And what the grand jury here found, that they couldn't even prove probable cause that the officer did it on purpose. So if that's the case, that's the right finding by the grand jury.
Do you think the department, though, could be in trouble and face a lawsuit?
Absolutely. I think that when Mrs. Garner talks about justice, there's a lot of different ways to get justice in this world. And if the officer really didn't, in fact, commit a crime, that doesn't mean he did everything right. And if he did something wrong, they can sue the department, and the officer can be disciplined. They can recover money for what the officer did. The officer might be fired. So there's a lot of other ways to right this situation, even if it's not by someone else going to jail.
About a minute left. I'd like to get your reaction to something else going on, and that's the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, the way he has reacted to this case. It seems there's going to be a real dispute now between the cops union and City Hall. Can that be reconciled so that the police can maintain order? Adam, very quickly, 20 seconds to you and then to Bruce.
Very hard situation, but I think the mayor is trying to appease the public at this point. But there are questions to be asked, so he's asking the right questions. The police can and should do better.
Well, let me turn to our former federal prosecutor. The whole political angle on this, Bruce, does it set up a situation that really causes problems now for the police in maintaining order?
I don't think it causes problem for them in maintaining order. People want to be safe. They want the police to do the dirty work that's required to keep them safe, and sometimes it's just not pretty. But I think it is a political problem for the mayor because the police union is very powerful. He's got his other constituency, and there's going to be a tug of war for a while in New York politics over this.
Yep, politics always intervenes in every avenue of public policy, including what happens in the courts. Former federal prosecutor Bruce Reinhart coming to us from New York, and our friend Adam Thompson, attorney at law from Louisville, Kentucky. Gentlemen, to you both, we thank you very much for what you had to say. There is more straight ahead on this Friday edition of America's Forum. Please stay with us here on Newsmax TV.